Cameras were rolling, security had their tasers ready, and a crowd cheered as a man in a janitor's uniform was about to be thrown out of Titanium Tower. But then he laid a single document on the marble desk. And in seconds, the truth shattered every assumption. Malik Johnson wasn't a trespasser. He was the new owner of the building. This moment flipped humiliation into history and forced an entire industry to face its own prejudice. If stories like this make your heart race, and you believe justice should always get the last word, subscribe now so you never miss the next twist that will leave you stunned. The lobby of Titanium Tower glittered like a modern cathedral. Floor-to-ceiling glass walls caught the midday sun and threw it back in shards of light. The air carried the faint perfume of money designer colognes, leather briefcases, champagne still fizzing in crystal flutes. Every detail screamed wealth and exclusivity, and then a voice cut through it all like a blade. Security, remove this man before he bothers our clients. It was Evelyn Hart, front of house manager, her tone sharp enough to silence the chatter of the room. Her beige suit hugged her frame in polished precision, her blonde hair arranged like a magazine spread. But her eyes, icy gray, hard as steel, were fixed on a single man, Malik Johnson. Tall, broad-shouldered, dressed in a faded janitor's uniform the color of workaday blue. In his arms he held an old leather folder worn at the edges, as if it contained the last remnant of his dignity. He didn't flinch under the attention. His eyes carried something unreadable calm on the surface, but with a dangerous undertow just beneath. A ripple of whispers spread across the marble floor. Well-dressed guests turned, forming a loose semicircle. Phones appeared in hands like weapons, cameras clicking on. Everyone smelled drama. Everyone wanted footage. Evelyn folded her arms, lips curling into a smirk. You think you can just stroll into Titanium Tower dressed like that? This isn't the place to test your luck, sir. Malik said nothing at first. His grip on the folder tightened. Finally, his voice, deep, steady, almost too calm for the moment, broke the silence. I have an appointment on the 58th floor. Please verify it. The words fell flat, met not with respect but laughter. A middle-aged man in a silk tie chuckled, loud enough for the crowd to hear. The 58th? That's the shareholder boardroom. What are you, the janitor turned CEO? Laughter rolled. Across the lobby, a young woman holding her phone to livestream whispered to her audience, "Oh my God, this is gold." Classic Karen moment incoming. Look at the manager, she's about to go full meltdown. The viewer count ticked upward. 500. 1,200. 2,800. Evelyn played to the cameras like she was born for them. See, folks? These days, people think a few knockoff clothes give them access to our world. Guests nodded. A silver-haired woman raised her glass in silent approval. Through it all, Malik didn't move. His eyes stayed locked on Evelyn's, something in that gaze unsettled her for a fraction of a second before she recovered. Snapping her fingers toward security, two guards emerged from behind marble pillars. The taller one had a neck like a tree trunk and a radio clipped to his belt, hand resting just above the taser at his side. The other moved in at Malik's flank, eyes sharp, posture rigid. "Code red in the main lobby," the tall one reported. Into his mic, "Possible imposter. Prepare to escort." The audience leaned in, phones raised higher. Malik glanced at the scratched watch on his wrist. The second hand swept forward with stubborn precision. He murmured, almost to himself, 15 minutes left. Still on time. What time? Evelyn laughed, a sound brittle and sharp. You think you have an appointment with the board upstairs? Don't kid yourself. The only appointment you have is with the sidewalk outside. The crowd chuckled. Some openly, some behind their hands. Yet a few dissenting voices cut through the noise. Shouldn't they check first? Maybe he's telling the truth. But those voices were drowned by the weight of the crowd, by the cold efficiency of the guards, by Evelyn's commanding sneer. Malik closed his eyes for a moment, breathing in deeply. When he opened them, his gaze sliced into Evelyn with startling clarity. Have you ever been judged by your appearance before anyone bothered to find out who you really are? Her face twitched before she laughed again, louder this time. Janitors don't do philosophy. We have standards here. And you, sir, don't meet them. The words struck like a whip. Phones zoomed in tighter. Viewers poured into the live stream. 8,000 and climbing. Comments scrolled faster than the eye could follow. This is racism, period. Somebody call the press. Why is he so calm? Dude knows something. The air thickened with tension. The lobby, once a temple of glass and marble, had become a theater of humiliation. And yet, through it all, Malik Johnson stood perfectly. Still, calm, silent, waiting as if he knew the show had only just begun at noon. Titanium Tower gleamed like a blade. Sunlight burnished the lobby's glass skin and skittered along the marble floor in bright, nervous rivers. The air held a perfume of citrus polish and cold money. Every footstep made a crisp signature that said, "I belong here. Security, remove this man before he bothers our clients." Evelyn Hart didn't raise her voice so much as tune it cool, precise, perfectly amplified by stone and glass. She stood behind the crescent of the front desk, beige suit immaculate, a silk scarf and a restrained knot at her throat, one manicured finger extended like a gavel. Her eyes, slate gray and practiced, never flinched. They pinned Malik Johnson. He was tall and broad at the shoulders, the kind of height that should have made him a presence. Yet the blue janitor's uniform had a way of rendering him invisible. Standard issue, faded at the elbows, a frayed badge loop hanging empty. He held an old leather folder to his chest. The corners were softened by years, the stitching slightly loose, as if it had learned to yield to a grip that refused to. He didn't move. A semicircle of onlookers cohered with magnetic speed. Men in banker navy suits, women in minimalist heels. A golf visor here, a watch that could pay a year's rent there. Phones rose like a flock of small metal birds. The red dots of recording lights blinked to life. "Sir," Evelyn said, smile crisp and administrative, "this is a secured property. If you have business here, it is not at the front of house level. Please exit, now." Malik tilted his head. His voice, when it came, was low and steady, a slow bass against the glass-bright room. "I have an appointment on the 58th floor. Please verify it." A soft ripple of laughter opened in the crowd. "The 58th, a man in a cobalt." Ty repeated, delighted. "That's the shareholder boardroom." Another voice, a woman live streaming with her phone held just below her chin, dropped to a conspiratorial murmur for her viewers. "Okay, people, we may have a situation. Front desk is going full gatekeeper. He says he has a meeting with the board." The counter on her screen ticked. 482 watching. Gives 1,173. Evelyn didn't look at the camera. She'd been trained not to. She kept her attention on Malik, chin lifted by a degree. "Standards are not a suggestion in this building," she said, and it came out almost tender. "Security." 2 guards detached from the marble pillars. With professional calm. The taller had a neck like a piling and the weary eyes of someone who knew how quickly a day could go bad. The other was compact, quick, a runner's economy in his movements. They stopped 3 feet from Malik, hands open, posture conversational in that practiced way that looked like de-escalation and felt like a wall. "Afternoon, sir," the taller guard said. "If you'll step outside, we can sort this out." Malik glanced at his watch. The crystal was scuffed, the face old-fashioned white dial, thin black hands, a second hand that ticked instead of glided. The tiniest smile, or maybe a breath, touched his mouth. 15 minutes, Evelyn's brow creased. 15 minutes to what? "To be on time," Malik said. "If you verify my appointment." The compact guard nameplate Kim shifted, just slightly. He watched Evelyn, then Malik, then the crowd's hungry eyes. Phones leaned in. A man with a tennis visor chose the moment to lend moral support. "Good for you," he told Evelyn. "Loud enough to carry. You can't let people just wander in." A few nods. In the reflection of the glass, a dozen screens hovered, little rectangles of judgment. "I understand the need to screen," Malik said, voice even. "I am asking you to do it." "Sir," Evelyn replied, the syllable widening into a warning. "Our system is comprehensive. If you were scheduled, we would see it. You are not scheduled." She angled her body toward the desk terminal as if that settled it, as if proximity to a computer blessed her sentence with irrefutable truth. "May I ask?" Malik said. "If your system includes—" "No, you may not," Evelyn cut in gently. "You may step outside." The live streamer's comments scrolled faster. "Check his ID. Why won't they look? He's so calm." "He knows something." The counter fluttered. 2,946, gives. 4,201, gives. 6,089. "Sir," the taller guard Torres said. Soft but firmer, "Let's go." Malik didn't resist. His eyes traveled the lobby the way a carpenter reads a room materials, seams, stresses. The art installation above the seating area. Brushed steel arcs meant to evoke flight. The gold-lettered creed etched into the wall. Near the elevators. Integrity, excellence, access. He let the last word sit with him a beat longer than the others. Then he looked at Evelyn as if measuring something that had nothing to do with her height. "Have you ever been decided by someone else's eyes before you had the chance to speak?" The question landed cleanly. It made a small sound no one expected, the sound of a thought asked to stand up straight. For a half second, Evelyn's mouth lost its management smile. The room seemed to breathe and hold. She recovered. "We're not doing philosophy, mister." She checked the blank badge loop. "No last name. We're doing policy." The elevator chimed. Heads turned reflexively. Two consultants stepped out, laughing about a client's appetite for buzzwords: hypergrowth, runway, velocity. They saw the circle, slowed, drifted toward the ring of phones like moths drawn to a stadium. "Ma'am," Kim ventured, eyes still on Malik, "we could radio upstairs." Evelyn didn't turn. "And invite disruption into a secure floor?" "No." Her tone sweetened by a degree cameras. "We are happy to serve everyone appropriately. This gentleman can file an inquiry with building operations." The visor man clapped twice. Someone else shushed him, not out of compassion but to keep the audio clean. Malik's fingers tightened on the leather folder. The stitching creaked softly. On the spine, for the briefest instant, a sliver of something flashed embossed metal. Before the folder pressed flush against his chest again. 14 minutes, he said. "Time," Evelyn replied, "is not the issue." "Time is everything," Malik didn't say. The livestream woman edged closer, her voice trembling with the thrill of proximity. "He keeps checking his watch," she whispered. "Chat says countdown." "Oh, this is getting good." 9,504 watching. Torres shifted his stance to block the path toward the elevator bank. Kim mirrored, cutting the angle to the revolving doors. The geometry of control settled in with the elegance of a CAD drawing. No route forward without contact. No exit without submission. "Sir," Torres said, "this isn't worth getting arrested." The word arrested rippled outward, the crowd straightening. Screens angling, that parasitic hush when strangers taste someone else's risk. A young man in an oatmeal sweater muttered, he should just leave, like a prayer that absolved him from choosing. "You're escalating a mistake," Malik said. "A call would resolve it." "We don't take instructions from trespassers," Evelyn replied, and made it sound like mercy. Close up, the camera caught the small things the naked eye missed. A near-invisible crack in the marble where thousands of heels had struck the same seam. The crescent of dried coffee around the base of a $9 latte on a low table. A pale ring on Malik's ring finger, where a band had once lived. The chat noticed everything, and nothing. Ask his name. He said it. No, he didn't. Manager didn't ask. She doesn't care. 11,782 watching. Look, said a woman in a graphite pantsuit, not to Malik, not to Evelyn, but to her own screen. Nobody wants a scene, but you can't just... Her sentence ended in a shrug that sold itself as reason. 13 minutes. Malik said softly. He didn't look at the crowd. He looked at the wall with the creed again, the word access catching sunlight. He looked at the paneled column with the discreet security camera tucked at its crown. He looked at the elevator indicator. 41 lighting to 42. 43. 44. A slow red climb. Mr. Torres, he said, eyes flicking to the taller guard's nameplate. You've done this job long enough to know when a situation is headed somewhere it doesn't need to go. Exactly, Torres said. So let's walk outside. Malik shook his head once. I'm exactly where I'm supposed to be. The sentence didn't swell or harden. It simply existed the way weight exists. Somewhere in the back, a man with an industry blog typed furiously gatekeeping in real time, already queuing a post that would, by dinner, be eclipsed by something larger than commentary. Evelyn's radio crackled. She lifted it, listened, and let a fractional nod satisfy whatever back-office protocol it had delivered. Last chance, she said without looking up. Leave, or we will have you removed. The word removed was sterile and effective, like a disinfectant. It told the crowd, trust us to keep you clean. Malik eased a breath in. He didn't lower the folder. He didn't plead. He simply returned his gaze to Evelyn Hart and let the quiet do what it always does to people who love control. Make them talk. Do you know what happens, he asked, when a building forgets why it was built? Sir, Evelyn said, you're trespassing. He nodded once, as if logging an item on a list only he could see. 12 minutes. The elevator chimed again, closer now in the body's register than in the ear, the sound of the stories. Next beat, drawing breath. Heads turned reflexively toward the doors, toward the red numbers, toward the mirrored panels that would soon open on something. Phones lifted higher. The crowd leaned forward as one organism, and all at once the lobby felt less like a room and more like a stage, waiting for its next entrance. The chime of the elevator still lingered in the marble lobby, a single note suspended in the air. The doors slid shut again, carrying two oblivious consultants upward, leaving behind the ring of strangers and their hungry cameras. All eyes snapped back to the man in blue and the woman in beige. Malik hadn't shifted an inch. His eyes held Evelyn's as if they were the only two people in the room, though nearly 50 others pressed close now, forming a living wall. I have an appointment on the 58th floor, he said, voice even, patient. In 15 minutes. Please. Verify it. The words, clear as glass, were met not with consideration, but with a dagger of laughter. Evelyn's lips curled. The shareholder boardroom? Her tone dripped disbelief, sharpened by the need to perform. And you think those janitors' overalls are your ticket in? The crowd answered for her snickers, chuckles, a few delighted gasps. To them, Malik's claim was comedy, not possibility. Phones tilted higher. A young woman near the concierge desk whispered into her live feed. Another Karen moment loading. This manager's about to go viral. On her screen, the counter ticked upward. 3,217 gives, 5,806 gives, 7,421. And then it happened. A hashtag bloomed, birthed in the comments and hurled into the wider world like a flare. Hashtag titanium racism. Within minutes, it spread across platforms. Screenshots flew through group chats. The name of the tower, once shorthand for power and exclusivity, was now attached to a stain. But in the lobby, The only evidence was the shift in energy. People pressed closer, scenting blood in the water. The semicircle tightened into something more like a noose. The marble echoed with the faint squeak of shoes repositioning, the low murmur of commentary, the artificial chorus of digital approval. Malik looked at none of them. His eyes stayed on Evelyn. Calm, steady, unreadable, sir. One of the guards warned, hand brushing his taser. Don't make this harder. It shouldn't be hard at all, Malik answered. A single call would prove my words. Don't tell us how to do our job, Evelyn snapped, glancing briefly at the cameras before turning back to him. Your kind always thinks rules don't apply. A silence dropped like a weight. It wasn't just the insult, it was the phrasing. Phones jerked closer. One microphone picked it up crisp and clean, ready to be replayed endlessly. The comment sections lit like a bonfire. She said, "You're kind." "Oh no, this is textbook racism. Get the press here." "He's way too calm. Watch plot twist incoming." The number on the livestream counter surged past 10,000. From the back, a man in a blazer with a press badge half tucked into his pocket was already typing furiously. His headline glowed against the screen of his tablet. Gatekeeping in real time, Titanium Tower's shame. Malik didn't raise his voice, didn't defend himself, didn't protest the slur. He only repeated, softly, 14 minutes. Evelyn blinked. "Excuse me?" 14 minutes until my meeting. The calm in his tone unsettled more than any protest could have. He was not pleading for entry, he was waiting for something inevitable. The livestream audience caught it instantly. He knows something. That confidence, though. He's not bluffing. Viewers poured in. 12,884 gives, 15,229. One of the guards shifted uneasily. His training told him something was off. People about to be dragged out did not stand this. Still, they shouted, they begged, they ran. This man simply waited. But Evelyn couldn't see it. She was intoxicated by the crowd, by the rising tide of online validation she didn't yet realize had already turned against her. "Ladies and gentlemen," she announced to the ring of phones, "this is exactly how standards are upheld. If we let just anyone march into our boardrooms, this building would collapse into chaos." Applause came from a few corners. A man in a golf shirt raised his phone and declared to his own viewers, "This is leadership. This is how you protect a brand." The irony was lost on him. Malik glanced once more at his battered watch. His voice, measured as ever, cut through the chatter. 13 minutes. And in that moment, the lobby felt less like a reception hall and more like an hourglass, its grain slipping steadily towards something no one else could yet see. The lobby no longer felt like a place of arrival. It had become an arena. Phones glimmered like torches around Malik, their lenses capturing every angle. The circle of guests pressed tighter, bodies edging closer under the pretense of curiosity. Though what they wanted was spectacle. Every cough, every shuffle, every nervous laugh fed into the electricity of anticipation. The taller guard, Torres, shifted his weight forward, blocking the path to the elevators with his bulk. His hand hovered just above the holster at his hip, fingers brushing the cold plastic of the taser. Kim, the smaller guard, flanked Malik's right side, cutting off any escape route to the revolving doors. The geometry was perfect, a trap disguised. "As procedure, sir," Torres said, voice firm now, "you need to leave voluntarily. If you don't, we'll escort you." Malik turned his head slightly, eyes touching Torres with calm recognition. "You've been trained to de-escalate. Is this what that looks like?" Torres stiffened. He didn't answer. The cameras did it. For him, zooming in on the flicker of uncertainty in his face. From the far side of the lobby, a young woman named Leela Chun steadied her phone with both hands. Her live stream counter vaulted past 18,000. The comments poured in, a flood her eyes. Could barely follow. He's right. Guards are escalating. This is gonna blow up big time. Someone call the news station, now. Evelyn noticed the surge of attention and leaned into it like a performer finding her spotlight. "Ladies and gentlemen," she declared, voice loud enough to carry across marble and glass, "you see how entitlement works? He refuses to comply, refuses to leave. These are the moments when rules must stand firm." A smattering of applause broke out from a cluster of guests near the bar. One man in pearls raised his phone higher, declaring, "Finally someone protecting." Standards. But standards of what? The question hummed in the silence that followed. Malik's voice cut through it. 12 minutes. He wasn't pleading. He wasn't bargaining. He was counting down. And the confidence in his tone rippled through the crowd like a warning siren. They didn't know how to hear. Kim cleared his throat. "Sir, if you have legitimate business here, show us documentation. We can end this peacefully." Evelyn snapped, her head toward him. "Do not negotiate with him. That's exactly what he wants: attention, confusion, weakness." Phones caught it all. The clipped command, the silenced subordinate. The livestream chat exploded. She just shut down her own guard. Wow, power trip much. This is straight discrimination. The viewer count surged past 22,00. Malik remained perfectly still, folder pressed against his chest like armor. His gaze never wavered from Evelyn. "You've had every opportunity to verify. You chose humiliation instead." The sentence landed heavy, echoing off marble. A few in the crowd shifted uneasily, as if realizing they were participants in something that might not age well once the video hit the wider world. Then, as if on cue, the sound of sirens bled faintly into the lobby, carried through the glass. Doors from the streets below. Faint now but approaching. "Police are on their way," Torres murmured into his radio. Evelyn smiled, triumphant. "Good. Then this circus will end." She turned to the nearest phone, voice dripping with performance. "When the authorities arrive, they'll see exactly what we've dealt with. A man who thought a janitor's uniform could pass as a ticket to power." The chat exploded again. "Oh, she's in trouble. This is gonna backfire so hard. She doesn't even know who she's talking to." But Malik knew. His stillness was not surrender, it was patience. The kind of patience that carried the weight of inevitability. He glanced once more at his watch, lips moving barely above a whisper. 11 minutes. And though the crowd didn't understand, yet, the clock had already started ticking, not toward his removal, but toward their reckoning. The sirens outside grew sharper, echoing faintly off the glass facade. But inside the lobby, it was another sound that seized control. The heavy, deliberate click of Italian leather shoes against marble. Richard O'Connell emerged from the executive elevator with the posture of a man who believed the building itself bent to his will. 20 years in luxury property management had carved him into a figure of authority, silver hair combed like steel, suit pressed within an inch of perfection, cologne rich and assertive. He didn't hurry. He didn't need to. Authority arrived on his terms. "What's the situation here?" His voice filled the space like a gavel striking wood. The crowd shifted, phones swinging toward him as if gravity itself had changed direction. Evelyn straightened, smoothing her suit jacket, relief rushing across her features. "Richard, thank God you're here," she said quickly, seizing the chance to frame the story. "This man has been disruptive for nearly 10 minutes. Claims he has a meeting upstairs, refuses to leave. I explained the policies, but he's non-compliant." Murmurs rippled through the onlookers. The presence of a senior manager seemed to confirm her authority, like a second witness swearing to the same truth. Richard studied Malik, eyes scanning up and down the janitor's uniform, the scuffed shoes, the folder hugged to his chest. He gave the kind of practiced assessment that had dismissed thousands before, measuring threat, legitimacy, worth all in under 3 seconds. "Sir," Richard said, his tone patronizing but lacquered with politeness, "I'm Richard O'Connell." General Manager of Titanium Tower. I understand you may be confused about building policies, but this is a private establishment. Standards must be maintained. Our system shows no appointment under your name. You'll need to exit immediately. It was the verdict of a judge who already considered the case closed. The livestream counters erupted. Leela Chun's feed vaulted. From 22,000 to 28,000. Then to 31,000. Comments flew like sparks. They didn't even check. This guy is calm AF. He's got something. GM just doubled down. Oh, this is gonna be legendary. Malik's face remained unreadable. His eyes, dark and steady, settled on Richard the way a chess player studies an opponent 2 moves behind. I've asked for verification, Malik said softly. None was provided. Richard smiled, practiced and condescending. That's because you don't belong here. This is a professional environment. The boardroom upstairs isn't open to the public, and certainly not, his gaze flicked down Malik's uniform with surgical disdain. To individuals without proper clearance. Phones leaned in. The phrasing was subtle but lethal. Certainly not to individuals like you. Evelyn, sensing momentum, stepped closer to Richard's side like a lieutenant awaiting orders. We've given him every chance to leave voluntarily, she added. He refuses. I believe this is a staged incident for social media. The crowd nodded in approval, some murmuring agreement. To them, the narrative was clear. The brave management team versus an entitled trespasser seeking attention. Malik checked his watch again. The tiny second hand ticked forward. He murmured, almost to himself, 10 minutes. Richard's brow furrowed. Excuse me, 10 minutes until my appointment. Richard laughed, sharp and theatrical, playing perfectly to the cameras. Your appointment? Sir, the only appointment you have is with the police when they arrive. And they're on their way. Applause broke out again short. Brittle claps that sounded more like validation than joy. But in the digital sphere, the tide was already turning. Screenshots of Malik's composure versus the manager's aggression spread on Twitter, Instagram, TikTok. The hashtag titanium racism climbed trending lists. Local newsrooms received dozens of tips within minutes. Discrimination unfolding. Live at Titanium Tower. And through it all, Malik stood motionless, calm. His folder clutched like a secret, waiting to be revealed. Richard mistook the stillness for weakness. Evelyn mistook the patience for surrender. Neither understood that they weren't witnessing a man about to be removed. They were witnessing the final countdown to their own undoing. The lobby pulsed with heat and noise now. Not from temperature, but from bodies pressed too close, from whispers colliding in the marble acoustics, from the electronic hum of 100 phones streaming live. The line between guest and spectator had dissolved. Everyone was part of the show. Richard O'Connell positioned himself directly in front of Malik, a wall of gray wool and cologne, his authority sharpened by years of unchallenged dominance. Evelyn hovered at his shoulder, her smile taut her voice pitched for the cameras. This is how professionalism works, she declared. This man refuses to comply with basic rules. We cannot allow chaos in a building of this standard. Torres and Kim inched closer, their bodies now flanking Malik on either side. The stance was unmistakable, compliance or force. Phones lifted higher, capturing the symmetry of confrontation. Malik didn't move. His stillness unsettled more than any raised voice could have. His gaze, steady and unbroken, held Richard like a mirror. 9 minutes, he said quietly. Richard chuckled. But the sound wavered at the edges. 9 minutes until what? Your fairy tale meeting? Sir, I've managed this tower for 20 years. Every legitimate guest passes through my system, and you are not in it. End of story. Endings are rarely so simple, Malik replied. The comment section of Chun's livestream erupted. He's so calm it's scary. GM doesn't know he's about to get nuked. 9 minutes, mark this. Something's coming. The viewer count ticked past 38,000, then 41,000. Local reporters raced toward the tower, their vans already parking outside, antennas rising like bayonets. Evelyn, intoxicated by the crowd's physical approval, though blind to the digital tide, stepped forward with mock sympathy. "Sweetheart, whatever coupon deal you think you found online, it doesn't get you into board meetings. You need to leave before this becomes embarrassing." The phrasing, meant to cut, instead detonated. Phones caught every syllable. A sharp intake of breath rippled through the crowd, some of them finally realizing the optics. Malik didn't blink. "Embarrassment," he murmured, "is often the seed of revelation." Richard's patience thinned. He leaned closer, voice low enough to sound intimate but loud enough for the cameras to catch. "You're making a mistake. You think being indignant grants you access, but all it earns is consequences." His choice of words hung like smoke. Consequences. The livestream chat caught fire. "Oh no, he didn't. He just threatened him on camera. This is bigger than they realize." Torres shifted, unease crawling across his face. Years of training told him, people who know they're trapped fight, beg, or flee. This man only counted down. That kind of calm meant something else entirely. "Sir," Torres said quietly, "if there's proof you belong here, now's the time." Malik's eyes flicked to him with something almost like respect. But his voice remained measured, unhurried. 8 minutes. The words rolled through the lobby like thunder, too far away to hear clearly, but close enough to feel. Outside, the first news cameras mounted their tripods. Inside, the crowd pressed tighter, pulled by the gravity of spectacle. Richard mistook their nearness as validation. Evelyn mistook their silence as approval. Neither recognized the truth. They were standing on a stage, and the world was watching. And Malik Johnson, calm, unshaken, was the only one who seemed to know what act was about to begin. The police sirens outside had grown louder, echoing up the glass facade of Titanium Tower, but inside the lobby another sound swallowed all others. Silence. Not emptiness, but the charged hush of a crowd holding its breath, waiting for a climax they could feel gathering like a storm. Phones hovered, steady now, lenses fixed on Malik Johnson. More than 50,000 viewers watched through Lila Chen's stream. Comments scrolling faster than she could even glance at. "Here it comes." Countdown hitting 8 minute. Something's about to break. Richard O'Connell mistook that silence for dominance. He leaned closer, invading Malik's space with the smug assurance of a man who had always won by pressing harder. "You mentioned an appointment. Let me be perfectly clear. No such appointment exists. And in 8 minutes, the only place you'll be is outside in cuffs." Laughter sprinkled from a few in the crowd, thin, nervous laughter, like matches sputtering. In the wind. Malik looked at his watch, then back up. His voice, low but resonant, carried across marble and glass. 7 minutes, Richard scowled. Enough with the games. "Security," he gestured to Torres and Kim. "Restrain him and escort him to the service exit." Torres hesitated. Kim shifted uneasily. They both felt it, the wrongness, the imbalance, the sense that this was bigger than a routine removal. Evelyn's voice rose to fill the hesitation. "Do it, now, before he creates a scene." But the scene had already been created. Cameras drank in every gesture, every word. Screenshots spread across Twitter. Evelyn pointing like a queen casting out a trespasser. Richard's sneer frozen mid-sentence. Malik's stillness carved in stone, and then Malik moved. Not away, not toward, but forward in the smallest of ways, placing his battered leather folder gently on the marble reception desk. The sound of it landing was soft, but in the hush it cracked like a gavel. "Before you escalate further," he said, his tone carrying the weight of inevitability, "I will give you one final chance to verify." Richard laughed, sharp and triumphant. "Verify what? That you belong here? That folder of yours probably holds fake credentials, printed in some basement. Do you really think anyone's fooled by this act? Evelyn leaned closer, sneering for the cameras. Go on then. Show us your little papers. Malik's fingers opened the folder with a surgeon's precision. He drew out a single sheet-thick cream stock, embossed seal gleaming faintly under the chandelier light. He turned it over and placed it face up on the desk, phones angled in. The front row gasped. At the top, in bold lettering, Johnson Equity Partners, acquisition of controlling interest, Titanium Tower Holdings International effective. Immediately, for the first time, Richard's practiced smile faltered. His eyes flicked down the page, skimming seals, signatures, legal phrasing he had seen before in boardrooms, but never from this side of the table. This, he stammered, voice dropping. This can't be real. Torres, caught between duty and disbelief, reached for the paper. His eyes scanned it quickly. The watermarks, the notarizations, the corporate stamps, every detail screamed authenticity. His hand trembled as he whispered, "Sir, this looks legitimate." The crowd recoiled as if struck. Gasps replaced laughter. The live stream. Comments detonated. HE owns IT. Plot twist of the year. Holy hell, the janitor's the boss. Richard's face drained of color. Evelyn leaned over his shoulder, reading aloud before she could stop herself. Johnson Equity Partners. 71% controlling interest. Her voice cracked into silence. Malik lifted his gaze, locking eyes with both of them. His voice was calm, cold, undeniable. I am Malik Johnson, Chief Executive Officer of Johnson Equity Partners. As of 9 o'clock this morning, my firm owns controlling interest in this property. Which means, he paused, letting the weight land. You've spent the last 20 minutes humiliating your employer. The marble lobby went still. Chun nearly dropped her phone. Oh my God, she whispered to her 60,000 live viewers. He owns the tower. He literally owns it. Richard staggered back, words failing him. Evelyn's mouth opened, then shut, her expression frozen between disbelief and horror. Torres stepped away, hand falling from his taser. Kim lowered his eyes. Even the guests, those who had sneered, who had applauded, now stood stricken, their phones still raised but their pride evaporating. And Malik, the man they had tried to drag out, simply picked up the next document in his folder. 6 minutes, he said softly. And my board is waiting upstairs. The marble lobby still throbbed with the aftershock of Malik's revelation. Phones quivered in hands that moments ago had pointed and mocked. The words controlling interest and CEO floated in the air like shards of broken glass, cutting through every assumption that had been made about him. Richard O'Connell's jaw worked soundlessly. Evelyn Hart looked as though she had swallowed glass. The crowd, once confident in their chorus of approval, now shifted uneasily, caught in the shame of a performance turned inside out. And Malik? He did not savor their collapse. He gathered the documents with meticulous calm, slid them back into his folder, and tucked it under his arm. His gaze swept the room over Torres, who stood rigid with shame. Over Kim, who had lowered his eyes. Over the phones that blinked like guilty stars. Then he turned toward the executive elevators. My board is waiting. The crowd parted instinctively, as if pushed by invisible hands. The very same guests who had boxed him in now drew back, clearing his path like water retreating from a stone. He walked forward, every step deliberate, every second captured by 1,000 lenses. The elevator doors slid open. Malik stepped inside, his reflection multiplying in the mirrored walls. Just before the doors closed, he looked back once, not at Evelyn, not at Richard, but directly into a camera. Accountability always arrives. The doors sealed, carrying him upward. Silence settled over the lobby, thick and accusing. Somewhere outside, police sirens cut off abruptly, redirected before they could even enter the building. The 58th floor boardroom gleamed with mahogany, polish and floor-to-ceiling windows that framed the city like a trophy. The air was heavy with tension. 7 board members sat around the oval table, their tablets lit, their voices hushed. At the head chair empty-weighted authority they hadn't yet met. The doors opened. Malik entered, folder under his arm, stride. Calm, unhurried. Behind him, 2 members of his legal team followed, black suits sharp, briefcases in hand. Mr. Johnson. Margaret Carter, senior board member, rose from her seat. Her voice carried both relief and apology. We were concerned. When you didn't arrive on time. I was detained, Malik said simply, moving to the head of the table. He placed the folder down with deliberate weight. By your own staff. A ripple of discomfort ran across the board. They had seen the clips already, notifications buzzing on their devices. They knew the storm was not waiting outside, but already tearing across the internet. Malik sat, and silence settled. When he spoke, his tone was cool, surgical. Before we begin the acquisition agenda, we need to address the liability incident that occurred downstairs. His legal counsel opened a briefcase, sliding printed reports across the table. Screens lit with statistics, social media feeds, sentiment graphs plummeting. Red. 93,000 live viewers, trending nationally. Hashtag titanium racism. The numbers landed like blows. Malik's gaze moved from one board member to the next. Your general manager and your front-of-house director orchestrated a public humiliation based solely on appearance. They had multiple opportunities to verify my appointment. They chose prejudice instead. And they did so under the gaze of thousands of cameras. Richard's name appeared on the screen, employment history scrolling down like a charge sheet. Evelyn's followed, her disciplinary record highlighted in stark lines. Section 12.4 of the acquisition agreement, Malik continued, is explicit. Bias or discriminatory actions by management personnel constitute immediate termination for cause. No severance, no pension, no references, effective immediately. The words cracked across the boardroom like thunder. Margaret Carter exhaled slowly. Then Richard O'Connell is finished. And Evelyn Hart, Malik added, voice cold as steel. Both are terminated, effective now. No one argued, no one could. The evidence was undeniable, the optics catastrophic, but Malik wasn't finished. He rose from his chair, walking slowly to the window where the city sprawled below like a living organism. This building is more than glass and marble, it is a symbol. And today, that symbol was tarnished not by me, but by the culture allowed to thrive under your watch. He turned back, eyes blazing now. That ends today. We rebuild not just with policies, but with principle. With systems that make humiliation impossible. With leadership that assumes dignity before doubt. The board shifted in their seats, caught between shame and awe. Malik's legal counsel slid forward another set of documents. New hiring protocols. Bias training mandates. Direct reporting systems. Bold letters stamped across the top. Dignity. First protocol. This is not optional, Malik said. It's survival. For this building, for this brand, for this industry. The board fell silent. Then, one by one, hands rose unanimous. The reforms were approved, and in that moment, Malik Johnson was no longer the man in the janitor's uniform, standing alone against humiliation. He was the architect of a new order, turning prejudice into policy, shame into reform, silence into accountability. Downstairs, the lobby had become a theater of disgrace. The same crowd that once applauded Evelyn Hart and Richard O'Connell now waited with phones lifted high, recording their downfall in real time. Security guards, not Torres and Kim this time, but 2 from corporate headquarters, escorted Richard through the marble floor he had once ruled. In his hands, a cardboard box filled with the remnants of a career-framed photo. Leather-bound planner, a desk nameplate that read General Manager. No applause now. Only silence broken by the relentless hum of recording phones. Richard's once proud stride had crumbled into a shuffle. His authority, his pension, his reputation all stripped away. Evelyn followed 30 minutes later, face pale, eyes darting from camera to camera, as though searching for an escape that didn't exist. She clutched her handbag like a life raft. But there was no rescue here. Every lens caught her shame, every angle preserved her sneers and condescension. Neither dared speak. There was nothing left to say. Torres and Kim stood nearby, not as perpetrators, but as witnesses. They had been spared immediate dismissal, offered instead something both humbling and hopeful, a chance to rebuild through intensive bias training and public accountability. When a reporter shoved a microphone toward them, Torres answered honestly, his voice steady but remorseful. "We followed orders," he admitted. But following orders doesn't excuse threatening someone who belonged. "Here, we were wrong." Kim nodded beside him. "Mr. Johnson showed us a grace we didn't deserve. Now we have to earn back trust with actions, not words." The live stream audience swelled again, 120,000 watching. This time not for humiliation but for something rarer. Accountability mixed with redemption. By evening, Titanium Tower looked transformed. New posters lined the lobby walls, bold and unapologetic. "Every guest belongs here. Verification before assumption. Dignity first. Always." At 5 o'clock sharp, Malik Johnson appeared again in the lobby, this time flanked not by guards but by board members. He stood at a podium hastily erected before the reception desk where he had once been cornered. Cameras from every major network crowded in. "Today," Malik began, his voice calm but resonant, "Titanium Tower failed. Not because of architecture, not because of operations, but because of culture. A culture that chose prejudice over procedure, assumptions over facts, humiliation over humanity." The room was silent except for the staccato of camera shutters. "We do not deny it, we own it, and we change it." He outlined the reforms, the firings, the protocols. He spoke not like a man settling a score, but like a leader setting a standard. Behind him, board members nodded solemnly. By the time he finished, the press release was already live online. Headlines exploded across the nation. CEO humiliated in his own tower, then transforms industry overnight. Titanium Tower implements dignity first protocol after viral racism scandal. From janitor's uniform to CEO's power, Malik Johnson's lesson to corporate America. Weeks later, the ripple effects stretched far beyond the tower. Other corporations scrambled to audit their own practices. Hospitality journals hailed the reforms as the Washington standard of accountability, borrowing the phrase from an op-ed that had gone viral. 6 months later, Titanium Tower was a case study in business schools from Harvard to Stanford. Bookings had rebounded, revenues soared, but more importantly, guests of color spoke openly about feeling welcome in spaces that once made them brace for rejection. The phrase Malik had spoken in the lobby, "Accountability always arrives," became a mantra, etched into training manuals, quoted in boardrooms, stitched into the fabric of a new corporate culture. And for Richard and Evelyn, their names became cautionary tales, footnotes and lectures about bias and hubris. The world had not forgotten their faces, their sneers, their words. Careers ended not with quiet retirement, but with the roar of nearly 100,000 witnesses. But for Malik Johnson, the man in the janitor's uniform who had stood unshaken in the face of humiliation, the story was different. He had not only defended his dignity, he had redefined the very standards of an industry. One man, one folder, one moment of calm in the storm. In a tower that would never be the same again. Malik Johnson didn't raise his voice. He didn't fight back with rage. He stood calm, let the world witness, and then revealed the truth. That day, Titanium Tower was forced to change, but more importantly, so was everyone who saw the moment when prejudice met reality and lost. Because real power isn't about humiliating others. Real power is about using dignity to build something greater than yourself. If this story moved you, share it with someone who needs to hear it. And don't forget to subscribe to this channel, because together, we can keep telling the stories that prove justice and resilience will always rise above hate.